Hi, Harry Dent here on July 10th. Just a few quick observations from this week. I did get some interesting comments from my gun article, as I expected, Guns in America. I tell you that the best one to me, which really says something, is that, we are a rebellious culture. Europe is less so, used to be more so. Asia's very collective. They do what their government's told. That's why they've had such an easy time with the virus. They just wear masks and government says, okay, stay at home. They do it even if they don't force it. But our rebelliousness is what makes us probably the leading innovator in the world. I mean, if you travel the world, we're known for three things from my point of view. Number one is not Silicon Valley, it's Hollywood. People in the emerging world just think of us as movie stars and TV stars. And then, of course, there is Silicon Valley with everything from Apple to Microsoft to Google and we dominate personal computing and software, the biggest trends in internet, in the world. And then there's the dastardly Wall Street. We're leaders in that too. Those are three really important global industries, and we are the technological leaders. Now, that will not last forever, but it's always a good thing, Everything has its strengths and weaknesses. There's good things about being a rebellious culture, and there's bad things, And again, with the virus, the East Asians do seem to have some antibody advantage, probably from SARS or past things they're starting to measure. They have some antibodies kicking quicker than we do in the US and Europe and all. But they are a conformist culture, and they do what they're told, and they respond. They don't say, tell this to my shotgun, So again, just an observation. Great things and bad things about both. My biggest gripe, as usual, these damn markets. This is insane that markets, even the S&P is near its high. The NASDAQ keeps making new high, and the NASDAQ 100, and we're still in that channel. Yet to break out up or down conventionally yet. Gold is closer to breaking out in that 1800, 1820 range, but won't quite do that. But the markets just go up. The news is not good. The reopening of the country is not working. We've got major states that never got hit hard and had to learn their lessons, like New York and New Jersey, Louisiana, just accelerating like there's no tomorrow. And again, though, it's not as bad as people think. Even on the trajectory, I would estimate that sometime maybe in mid to late August, they will peak in cases and deaths. And then within 2 to 3 months, these things disappear. And it happened in every major country so far. So I still think by the election, this will not be so daunting. And in the next year, when we have a crisis, it's going to be more a real economic and geopolitical crisis, not this virus. But we'll see on that. But the market, there is no way we get back to 3.5% unemployment. There's no way that a lot of industries come back for years. Travel, airlines, cruise ships, decimated. And cruise ships are in a very good demographic. On the other hand, we got RVs and rental cars doing better than ever. And the RVs are also in a good demographic for aging baby boomers, although the cruise ships will grow much longer. So I do not expect cruise ships to disappear and people to stop flying, but it could take a couple years, especially with this downturn I'm predicting, for these things to come back. So the market, it just makes no sense because we are not successfully coming back. Yes, of course we are in certain industries, but I even saw, they said restaurants are only down 14% from the same time last year. That just cannot be possible unless I'm just living in the wrong place. I am in Puerto Rico. But I mean, we go to Cheesecake Factory and things like that, very large restaurants, easy to social distance, the easiest place to go to. They're like at 50% of what they were a year ago. So I just don't understand it. The government has pumped so much money in that is literally made up for the deficit in consumer spending. It also said people are saving $500 a month on average. Well, if they're saving, they're not spending. And saving's a good thing in its way, but there's something that doesn't add up here. And all I look at is two things. The 90-year cycle, the 45-year and 90, especially the 90, are the strongest cycles if you look back since the Industrial Revolution and the advent of financial markets for the markets. It is the biggest factor, bigger than demographics. Demographics got big because of the first middle class generation after World War II and then the giant baby boom. So demographics have seen their best impact, particularly on developed countries, which are now all slowing. The technology cycle really is the Trump cycle. And it is saying we should be hearing a major peak and a major reset. On the other hand, I keep looking and saying, well, no matter what happens, like this 40% crash and this virus, very strong hit, governments just calculate and print enough money or give away enough money to offset it instantly, like magic, as I say. So, and they keep doing this at greater expense, and you know you can't do that forever, but they keep doing it. And it keeps working even though lesser degrees, but they keep doing more to make up for it. So there's one of two things that can happen here, and I'm afraid of the second one more. The first is that we finally things do break and central banks lose control and are not able to keep this economy going when we don't really come back later this year, early next year. And that becomes more obvious than it is to these dumbass markets today who just don't get it. They're on crack. And then that system melts down, and then we get our normal innovation factors and the cycles I study back driving our economy instead of senseless money printing from central banks. Something for nothing policies, I call it. That's the best scenario for me. That is going to be painful, like the early 30s. You know, I've gone, no 70, 80, 90% crash in stocks, real estate, 40, 50%, whatever. And maybe it's not quite that bad because governments print so much more. But I think it just doesn't work at some point. Here's the worst scenario, is that the entire developed world, which are the ones in this bubble mostly, even though we've had the emerging countries join in the last round, we just go the way of Japan. Japan was the first to have a major bubble with their baby boom, bubble in real estate, bubble in the stock market, rising debt, rapid urbanization, much like China today. And then it all burst. The point is, Japan's baby boom and all their bubbles came 11 years ahead of the US and 14 years ahead of Europe. They had their crash on their own with the rest of the world still doing well. We had minor recessions in the early 90s. At least Japan's export markets hold up. Do we go the way of Japan? Because Japan was the first one to start printing money and has done way more. 108% last I heard of GDP, just in money printing alone, not counting fiscal stimulus, versus 42, probably closer to 50% now in Europe. And we got down to 19 from 24, and we're probably at about 33, 35% with our latest round as a percentage of GDP. They did it first, and they've done it the hardest. And they've just been able to be in a coma economy. No big downturn, no big deleveraging, don't write off debts, don't have major bank failures and companies, just protect everything. But the price of that is a coma economy. They've grown at basically zero, inflation and GDP. What happens if the whole rest of the developed world just says, and this is the philosophy I'm seeing, we're too old for this crisis. We don't want to have a bubble burst. We don't want to deleverage debt and have to, restructure our economy and stuff. So we're just going to go on a slow morphine drip. That's what Japan's doing. They just keep printing money like morphine to keep things just okay, but no disaster, no big pain. And that's the price of it. So that to me is the worst scenario. I still say, I do not think that's the most likely scenario because Japan went through its bubble burst and its recovery and printing cycle on its own while the rest of the world was weak. Now we're all weak. Everybody's got a bubble. Everybody's got too much debt. Every developed country, except for Australia and a few, have weakening and very strong weakening demographics. I don't see how you pull off the Japan stunt in those fundamental factors. But I tell you one thing, we're not going to know what these fundamental factors are until this bubble unwinds and the debt deleverages and the financial asset bubbles deleverage. See what Japan did, Japan's bubble did burst, real estate and stocks in the early to mid 90s. They didn't let their debt deleverage. So they still have most of the debt, but they don't have as big of bubbles as us. So we won't know until these bubbles and debt get wrung out of our economy how weak or strong the fundamental cycles are, because they don't matter much right now. They've been overridden by this mad money printing spree that never ends. So I still vote that we have the greatest crash of our lifetimes in the next few years. But I tell you, if it doesn't start by mid to late next year, probably not going to happen, and we'll have to recalibrate. But I still say that's what happens, because I don't see how the whole world can do what Japan did. So we'll keep you updated.